Hello, students. Welcome to the Fundamental of Public Policy and Analysis. In this lecture, you will study about the employment policies. We'll discuss in detail the various issues related to employment and employment policy, as well as the government's initiatives taken for the welfare of workers and laborers. And in the last, we will also discuss the latest Shram Shakti Niti of Government of India. But let me first recap what we have discussed earlier. We have discussed two main policies. First was related to population and second was related to health, and both are closely associated. In population policies, we discuss how the fertility, mortality, and migration affect the structure, size, and composition of population, and how these changes affect the economic outcomes, health outcomes, productivity, and economic growth. And we also discuss evolution and plan era of population policy in India, including National Population Policy 2000. Then we discuss health policies. So far, three health policies have been formulated by Government of India. First health policy was started in 1983, then second in 2000, and latest one was introduced in 2017. And major emphasis of these policies were how to increase public expenditure on healthcare services, how to improve the health system governance, and how to reduce interstate disparities in the access of healthcare facilities, and how to align the healthcare facilities with the sustainable development goal. Let us now discuss employment. Employment is the important issue because in any developing countries, if growth is not generating enough employment, then it will create underemployment or disguised unemployment. So therefore, country has to formulate employment policies which aims to promote full and productive employment by developing integrated employment development and skill policies that maximize the employment impact of economic growth, investment, and development, and that are inclusive, gender sensitive, productive, and sustainable development. International Labour Organization promotes labor welfare and employment related policies. We can divide the employment policy in several segments, as we know that employment issues are related to various policies, programs. So, therefore, any government policy which focuses on production, manufacturing, or other aspects of the economy, they directly or indirectly affect the employment. So, we can divide the employment policies into three main components. First is development and investment related policies, in which the employment is promoted through inclusive investment strategies, economic diversification, and structural changes in the economy. Similarly, the second component of employment policies is related to employment and labor market policies. These policies are responsible for integrated country employment policy diagnosis and reviews, facilitations of triple part policy dialogues. It means that it created the linkages between employment and economic growth, and formulate various policies which improve the well-being of workers. So some policies may be related to social security, some policies may be related to employment conditions, and third is skill and employability. In fact, employability and skill formation are the essential components of employment generation, and a country has to formulate various policies, especially building the skills among the workers and improving their employability by designing various policies, creating decent work, and increase the productivity of workers in different enterprises. Now, question is, why should we have a national policy on employment? I can argue here. First, there is disconnect between economic growth and employment growth. If you look at in most of the developing countries, GDP growth rate is growing faster than the employment growth rate, and there is a situation in most of the developing countries that a high GDP growth rate is not able to generate adequate productive employment in the economy. So there may be a phenomena of jobless growth, and sometimes in developing countries like India, there also be a phenomena of growthless jobs. Means there is a dichotomy in the economy. There is some sectors where growth is very high, but that growth is not generating enough employment. On the other sectors, large number of people are engaging in low productive activities. Their wages very low, and they are just engaging but not contributing significantly to the economic growth, creating a phenomena of growthless jobs. Another important aspect why should we have employment policy is demographic advantage, and demographic advantage in some countries are still there. India is having a window of opportunity for the next 2 decades in terms of rising working age population. Like most of the states like Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, these states are having advantage of demography, and how to convert this demographic advantage into dividend is a major challenge, and for that an effective employment policy is required. On the other hand, there are some southern states where population is aging, and but their contribution to economic growth is very high. So in that case, a separate type of policies are required how to address the problem of aging population. So demographic advantage is another argument why should India have national employment policy. Third point is high underemployment and low productive employment in informal sectors, including agriculture sectors. How to shift the workers from these low productive sectors to high productive non-farm sectors, especially providing jobs in manufacturing sector like micro, small, medium enterprises may have the huge potential to generate employment. So for that, we should have an employment policy which could address these issues. Then there is a high prevalence of job precariousness. Quality of job is very poor. Many people are not having access to social security. Minimum wage rate is quite low, and workers are not able to get a decent living conditions. So for that we need an effective employment policy. Then labor market inequality across gender and social group is another important issues. If you look at the employment patterns, workforce participation rate, wage rate, there is a huge difference across gender and social groups, and these issues need to be addressed through an effective employment policy. High youth unemployment among educated youth, particularly among the women, is very important issues. If you look at the labor force participation rate, that is very low among females as compared to male, and unemployment rate especially among the educated people is quite high. I will cover this point in my later stage of the lecture. Then there is a labor market dichotomy, means there is public private sectors, there is formal informal sectors. So these dichotomies need to be addressed, because one sectors is informal sector where majority of people are engaging in low productive activity. On the other sector, there is high emerging sectors where GDP is increasing but not enough jobs are created. Employment elasticity in manufacturing and many services is quite low, and employment elasticity in construction and agriculture may be relatively higher than the manufacturing sectors. So this is also the important issue. Then another important issue for the point of view of national employment policy is high complementarity between public utilities and private sectors. Public investment in road, power, water, sanitation, and many other aspects are very, very important to attract more investment in the private sector. So, if we wanted to improve the growth of employment in the economy, then we should also focus more on public investment in infrastructure as well as creating public utilities so that companies may get easy access to water, sanitation, road, and then they can get an incentive to make investment in productive activities. Then another issue is implication of automation, robotization, and AI technology. These days, most of the companies are now using automatic system of productions, AI, robotization. They are improving the productivity and efficiency in the production sector, but at the same time, they are also reducing the labor requirement. So, we have to understand these dynamic changes that is occurring in the developing economies, particularly in India, that the labor market is being affected by automation, robotization, and new technology is creating the labor market discrimination. Especially if you look at the effect of technology on labor market, it is creating the three kind of effects. One is displacement effect. When we use all these new technologies, some people are displaced, some people's job becomes redundant, especially the repetitive task being done by AI and automation. These kind of jobs are being lost. Second, when productivity and efficiency improves in the production system due to increase in automation, robotization, AI, that also increase the employment through countervailing effect. But another effect across the globe is also observed, and that is called actually the polarization effect. The demand for middle level skills are declining and demand for high skill jobs and low skill jobs increasing in most of the countries. So, these are the important issues that need to be taken into consideration while formulating the employment policy. Then employability, employment, social security, employment programs, and working conditions, they are also important for the policy making. And finally, let me also take another important issue why we should have a national employment policy, that is high proportion of women outside the labor market. In fact, the workforce participation rate and labor force participation rate among women is very low, particularly among the educated female is quite low. So, majority of people are outside of the labor market, and how to bring females into the labor market is another important challenge for the policy making. Let us now discuss the national employment policy. It is a comprehensive vision and practical framework to achieve a country's employment goals. It takes into account a whole range of social and economic issues. The policy affects many areas of government, not just the area in charge of labor and employment, but every part of the economy, because labor is affected by many socio-economic policies adopted by any country. It integrates various measures, programs, and institutions affecting labor demand, supply, and functioning of the labor market. It should promote decent work, as I already discussed, in which international labor standards, social protections, and workers' fundamental rights go hand in hand with the job creation. Let us now discuss the main component of national employment policies. If you want to formulate a comprehensive employment policies, then we have to create a framework for employment policies in which different types of policies need to be integrated, and ILO 2016 suggested this framework. In this, we have education and training, migration and demography, and it means that socio-economic policies are important to address the issue of education, skill, training, migration, and the demographic changes. Similarly, we also have wage policies, employment legislation, collective bargaining, and in this regard, we should have labor market policies and institutions. So we can divide the national employment policy into two components. One is economic and social policies, and other is labor market policies and institutions. Institutions also matters regarding the workers welfares. Within socio-economic policies, we should have pro employment macroeconomic policies, trade, tax, industrial infrastructure, and sectoral policies, enterprise policies, micro, small, medium enterprises development, and entrepreneurship like startup, stand up India, and make in India, skill India. All these are the important policies towards improving the education and training, migration, and employability of workers. On the other hand, we also have labor market policies and institutions, which includes like active labor market policies and passive labor market policy. Active labor market policy includes those policies which directly affect the workers, like social security of workers, minimum wage, and working conditions, health related issues at the workplace. All these are the active labor market policies. Passive market labor market policies means those policies which not directly affect the workers, but indirectly they improve the employability, employment opportunity for the workers. In India, Ministry of Labor and Employment is responsible for the labor related issues. The main responsibility of the ministry is to protect and safeguard the interests of the workers in general and those who constitute the poor, deprived, and disadvantaged section of the society, in particular with due regard to creating a healthy work environment for higher production and productivity, and to develop and coordinate vocational skill training and employment services. And policies of the ministries include safety, health, and environment at the workplace, national policy on HIV/AIDS, improve ease of doing business, employment and employment scenario like Directorate General of Training, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, and national policy on skill development. In fact, there are several policies related to labor and employment, and these policies need to be integrated into and comprehensive employment policies to address the employment challenges in the emerging economy. India's first employment policy is yet to be formulated. If you go through the all relevant documents of Ministry of Labor, you will find that so far India is not having any specific comprehensive employment policies. India has policy in many areas which directly or indirectly affect the employment, but so far we do not have a comprehensive national employment policy. Nation faces a serious job crisis with many workers affected by unemployment, underemployment, or low employment. In fact, if you look at the current situation of Indian labor market, you will find that India is facing several challenges such as high educated unemployment. I can share few data on unemployment situation in India. You will find that according to periodical labor force survey 2023-24, unemployment rate in India was 3.2% of all the workers taken together. But if you look at the youth unemployment, then it is 10.2%. Means India is having a major issue of youth unemployment, and there is a huge gap between male and female as far as youth unemployment is concerned. For example, for male, 9.8% was the unemployment rate among the youth, while the corresponding percentage for female was 11%. So educated females are also having high level of unemployment. If you look at the unemployment rate of graduate and postgraduate, then you will find that in India, on an average, the youth unemployment among graduate is 13%, and for female it was 20.4%, indicating that there is a high presence of educated unemployment among the youth and particularly female. While postgraduate and above, you will find that youth unemployment among the male is only 7%, but when you look at the female unemployment of the same education level, you will find that it is 22.5%. So there is a huge unemployment among the educated youth and particularly female, and India has to address this. In fact, unemployment is not the major issue for illiterate people, because when you look at the education profile of unemployment, you will find that literate people have negligible unemployment. Answer is quite obvious, because poor people, illiterate people cannot afford to leave unemployment. So just thinking that unemployment rate among low income group or illiterate people is much lower, it does not mean that they do not have the problem unemployment, because their problem unemployment is different. It is underemployment or disguised kind of unemployment, while the youth unemployment is a major issue for the macroeconomic point of view. Second challenge is skill mismatch and employability. Various reports are available, and they shows that approximately around 55% of educated youth, especially technical graduates, are having employable skills. So employability is another important issue which need to be addressed by the policy. Then jobless growth, I already discussed, is another issue. High level of informality. Majority of employment in India is in the informal sectors, including agriculture, and there is a huge rural-urban divide as far as the condition of employment is concerned. Female labor force participation rate is quite low, which need to be increased in coming time in order to make better contribution of female in economic development. Regional and gender disparities are another important issues, and there is also the stagnant manufacturing sector. In fact, manufacturing sector is the sector which can generate more employment in the economy, but over a period of time, although government of India has made several efforts, but the contribution of manufacturing sector to GDP as well as employment have not been increasing at a faster rate. So these are some of the challenges, and employment policy should address all these effectively. If you look at the background of national employment policy, its origin can be considered date back to 2008, when UPA regime came into power. However, there was no development on the same until 2016, the first meeting of BRICS Employment Working Group, when NDA government began work on it, but no significant progress was made towards formulating the employment policies. In 2021, efforts were made to establish a committee for formulating the policy. The committee is set to have representatives from different sectors, including academicians, trade unions, stakeholders, and ministries, etc., towards formulating the employment policies. The policy aims to absorb an additional 5 million workers each year, and focus is on formalizing the informal jobs. In fact, India's need to skilled around 500 million workforce. It will also ensure their social and job securities. The policy will frame a roadmap to provide incentives for employment generation, and main objective are to attract new enterprises and industries to generate employment opportunities, improve the skills set of the existing workforce to make it employable, as India gears up to attract companies seeking to shift manufacturing base from China. In fact, India started Make in India initiatives and providing different incentives to the multinational companies to make investment in the manufacturing sectors, and investment is flowing, but still there is a lot of things to be done, especially making the manufacturing sector more employment oriented. Until 2022, there was no committee to draft the national employment policies to study various facets of the employment and unemployment scenario in the country. Government has launched three surveys. First, All India Quarterly Establishment Based Employment Surveys to generate data, All India Survey on Migrant Workers, All India Survey on Domestic Workers. In addition to these surveys of workers, Government of India also publish periodically labor force survey which provide detailed data on various aspects of employment and unemployment rate, workforce participation rate in detail. These surveys will cover both organized and unorganized sectors. This information actually was given by the Ministry of Labor and Employment in the Rajya Sabha, so that information is based on that. Recently, last year, Shram Shakti Niti 2025 draft was prepared, but this is only draft. So far, it is not came into existence or not yet implemented. But let us discuss in brief the main content of this draft. It makes a shift from a regulatory approach to facilitative, inclusive, and technology driven system. Ministry of Labor and Employment is positioned to protect proactive employment facilitator, ensuring convergence among workers, employers, and training institutes. Government of India is also envisaging to have national career service platform, which will be in the form of integrated platform, integrating different stakeholders and providing digital public infrastructure for employment, transparent and inclusive job matching, credentials verification of workers, and skill alignment of different workforce. The vision includes to create an inclusive, equitable, and resilient world of work where every worker enjoy dignity, protection, and opportunity, and where India's economic growth remain people centric and planet centric. Key objectives of this policy are: first is universal social security. That is very important because India is not having universal social security so far. Many people engaging in informal sector as self-employment or casual workers, they are not getting comprehensive social security provisions. Integration and portability of social security benefit across sectors and states through the unified digital architecture combining EPFO, ESIC, PMJAY, eShram, and state welfare boards. So it is an integrated framework to provide universal social security. Second objective is occupational safety and health. Many workers face the problem of safety at the workplace. So adoption of modern risk-based inspections and gender-sensitive safety norms using AI-enabled monitoring to reduce workforce hazard is another objective. Third objective is employment and future readiness. India has prepared a roadmap for Viksit Bharat at the rate of 2047, and India needs workforce ready for the future so that the workforce can cater to the need of changing dynamics of Indian labor market, and it will focuses on the lifelong learning, upskilling, green jobs created to meet demand posed by digitalization and global market shifts. In fact, India is rigorously making efforts towards green economy energy security, energy transitions, and there is a huge scope of generating green jobs in the coming future. So, this is also the important objective that India need to make the workforce ready for facing the challenges of emerging labor market. Women and youth empowerment is equally important, as I told you that youth unemployment is very high, and especially among women it is much higher than the male. So, increasing female labor force participation, ensuring workplace inclusivity, and enhance protections of females and youth at the workplace is very crucial for the country. Ease of compliance and formalization. In fact, majority of people are engaging in informal sectors. So, India needs some initiatives to make shift from informal jobs to formal jobs by creating simple rules, creating a single window system, self certification, digital returns, aimed at reducing the regulatory burden, especially for micro, small, medium enterprises. So, several states have also formulated their policies related to micro, small, medium enterprises. In fact, labor is not subject of central list, it is in the concurrent list, and both state and center are formulating the programs and policy related to employment and labor related issues. Technology and green transition, that is also the main objective, and here the focus is on promoting sustainable employment which need to be aligned with climate goals and leveraging the technology for governance. Next objective is convergence and good governance. Convergence among the various programs and policies are very important in order to optimize the results of various programs and focus on the employment related issues in an integrated manner. So, for that, the policy envisages to establish a unified national labor data architect and strengthening interministerial coordination with robust monitoring framework and digital transparency. There are four guiding principles of the policy. First is dignity and equality of labor, recognizing the work as a foundation of national prosperity and social harmony. In fact, all workers should be treated with dignity, and at the workplace they should be considered equally. There should not be gender market discrimination, equal pay for equal work. So, this is also the important principles, the policy. And then second is universal inclusion, which ensures no worker, formal, informal, migrant or gig worker, is left behind in the country. Cooperative federalism, as I told you that the labor is a subject which come under the concurrent list. So, state also make rules and regulation policies for the welfare of workers, and center also make policy. In fact, there is also the important role that can be played by local bodies like municipalities and panchayati raj institutions. So, therefore, this policy envisages to promote a cooperative federalism among the different states, local bodies, and the center. Then, fourth guiding principle of the policy is data driven governance, and collecting data and manipulating, analyzing data, drawing inferences, very important, and technology can be harnessed for getting transparent, accountable, and efficient system in the country. Let me just briefly explain the key highlights of this policy. First is it provides a blueprint for fair, inclusive, and future ready workforce. This is very important. So, workforce should be trained, given adequate skills so that they can cater to the need of changing labor market conditions in the coming time. Labor as a subject is in the concurrent list of the Constitution of India, as I already told you. So, therefore, there should be a coordination among the center and states, even local bodies, while formulating the various schemes, programs, policies related to employment and labor related aspects. One important thing that is proposed in this policy is National Career Service (NCS). It is a unified interface to connect employers, job seekers, and training providers for AI enabled job matching and career guidance. Means this platform will provide job matching and career guidance powered by artificial intelligence, credential verification and skill mapping. Credential verification of workers and skill mapping of workers will easily be determined by this platform. Cross sectoral and regional employment linkages can be established, can be understood, and government can get inferences based on these linkages. All these are provided by this unified interface which connect all the stakeholders and provide valuable information related to supply and demand condition of the labor market. Another focus or priority area of the policy is continuous skill development and lifelong learning. In fact, that is very important because a dynamic economy like India, the job creation and job distribution or job eliminations are the main features. So, in a dynamic labor market today, if you have one skill, in next day that skill become eliminated. So, a worker has to keep them update to the changing condition of labor market, and they have to inculcate the learning to learn skills so that they may remain in the labor market. Single window digital compliance for micro, small, medium enterprises with self certification and simplified returns. So, technology is also being used here, and a single window digital compliance for micro, small, medium enterprises is suggested. The policy is proposed to be executed or implemented in three phases. In first phase, the period is 2025 to 27 and focus is on institutional setup and integration of social security system. So, different social securities must be integrated and an institutional framework for the welfare of workers need to be set up. Then in the second phase that will start from 2027 to 30, nationwide rollout of universal social security accounts, skill credit systems and district level employment facilitation cell. In fact, that is very important because in a dynamic labor market and especially in context of robotization, automation and AI, the pattern of employment and composition of employment likely to be changed in future, as periodical labor force survey clearly indicate that over a period of time self employment is increasing. Casual labor either slightly decline or remain stable, and there is no much increase, slightly increase in the regular jobs. So, if the pattern of job is changing and if more and more jobs are in self employment nature, so self employed people cannot complain that they are not getting minimum wages, they are not getting social security, they are not getting adequate work conditions because they are self employed. So, in that case, and if you look at the India's situation, there are large number of on account enterprises where only one person is engaging these activities. So, keeping all these aspects into consideration, what India need is a comprehensive social protection rather than simply a social security which may sometimes be linked to jobs. So social protection is very, very important. And in third phase, that is beyond 2030, full paperless governance system is envisaged to be created, and predictive policy analytics and continuous renewal of mechanism will be done. Means in the last stage, then the paperless technology enabled services will be created, and due to this constant monitoring and evaluation of labor market and skill set required in the different sectors of the economy need to be collected, so that the education institutions may also adapt themselves to the changing labor market conditions. There are few challenges to implement these policies. First is regulatory issue, fragmented labor market governance across ministry and state make coordination difficult, as this policy talk about that there should be an effective coordination among the different stakeholders. So creating coordination, especially in a fragmented labor market governance, is a big challenge. Then there is also implementation gaps. Limited capacity at the state and district level lead to uneven policy execution. In fact, many states are also having fiscal constraints, so implementing comprehensive social security and other aspects of the labor market is also a challenge. There is another important challenge is that digital divide, because in India, especially in the remote area, the people are not having access to the digital technologies, and that make a huge gap between rural urban and especially between informal sector and formal sectors. Data privacy and securities, that is also important, and India need to evolve an effective mechanism to protect workers' data while expanding the digital systems. Then, although effort is going on to formalize the informal economy, but there are several barriers towards formalization of informal economies. Large informal workforce makes registration and social security coverage difficult. Stakeholders coordination is equally an important issue, especially this require alignment among government, private sector and social partners, including non-governmental organization. Capacity building is equally challenged. Continuous training needs for official on new systems and compliance. In fact, Government of India few years ago set the target of 500 million workers. But if you look at the ground reality of skilling of workers, then we will observe that there has not been much progress in that area. So, capacity building of the institutions, including training institutions, education institutions, governing institutions, are very, very important in order to implement the policy in letter and spirit. Then, sustained funding. Finances are very, very important, and long term financing support required for reform and social security programs. When government started comprehensive social security programs, pensions, old age pensions, health coverage and safety standard and many other aspects related to welfare of the workers, and also creating new jobs for the emerging workforce, especially every years new workforce enter to the labor market. So to provide an effective policy design and implementing this policy require huge financial resources, and that is also a constraint. Let me briefly discuss that recently some labor market reforms have been made, and these are considered breakthrough in the labor market reforms. Several outdated laws have been eliminated, and they have been merged into four broad labor codes. First is Code on Wages, came into existence in 2019, and existing four laws were subdued, and comprehensive Code on Wages was developed. It ensures a universal minimum wage across India, including for unorganized sectors, and mandate timely payment like daily, weekly, or monthly. So, minimum wage across different sectors have been decided by this code. Second code is on social security, which came into existence in 2020, and it expands the social security provisions to includes unorganized sectors, gig workers, platform workers, and not only the organized workers, and it includes EPF and ESI benefits to the workers. Third is Industrial Relation Code 2020, and three laws were merged into it. It modernized dispute resolution, streamline trade union recognition, and eases rules for hiring and retracement of workers. So the workers cannot be retained without any justification. So everything's related to hiring and firing related issues, industrial relation, workers and employers relations have been discussed in this labor code. And last labor code is occupational safety, health and working conditions. At the workplace, some bare minimum working conditions are required, and safety of workers are very important. So 13 laws were merged together in the form of this labor code, and it sets mandatory safety standards, ensure annual health checkup of the workers, and enable women to work in all establishment, including hazardous jobs, with safeguard. So this occupational safety and health and working condition code also is an important reform, especially protecting the workers, their health, as well as safety, including the occupational safety of female and late night work safety. All these are the important aspect of the labor reform. Let me now sum up this topic. As I told you in the very beginning, that in a dynamic economy, labor market condition changes, and in a changing labor market conditions, workers had to be made ready for the future jobs. So patterns of job, composition of jobs are likely to change, and our workforce are need to be made ready for the kind of skills the emerging economy requires. So let me briefly discuss what we have covered in this topic. First, we discuss national employment policy evolution till 2025, and what we find is the aim of this policy is formalization of workforce, job securities, incentives for employment generation, and after 2025 or into 2025, Shram Shakti Niti was formulated as a draft, and it facilitates inclusive and technology driven ecosystem. As far as objective is concerned, earlier employment policies attract new enterprises and industries, improve the skill set of existing workforce, while this Shram Shakti Niti emphasizes on universal social security, occupational safety, employment, women and youth empowerment, formalization of economy, technology and good governance. As far as features of the policy are concerned, earlier policies focuses on labor market reforms, while this latest policy draft focuses on equality of labor, universal inclusion, cooperative federalism, data driven governance. And as far as challenges are concerned, in case of employment policies till 2025, the major challenge was gap in policy implementation, and there is high informality of the labor, and due to high informality of labor, the no fixed employer relation, most of the workers are not covered under the comprehensive social security provisions. While these policies try to focus on addressing the digital divides, implementing issues are there, but the policy will focus on the many important aspects that need to be discussed, especially the data privacy, formalization barriers, and funding problems. These are the major challenges. So, with this, let me close this lecture. Thank you.